Hello. Today, the old socialist is going to talk about the pros and cons of the various ways of removing someone from office. Specifically, the topic is Donald Trump. I live in a small, dying timber town called Cottage Grove in Oregon. It's getting a second wave of life here just as the coronavirus struck, closing down shop after shop. So again, it has a sort of Ray Bradbury end of the world on Mars mood wherever you go. Now, this is a very conservative town, and a lot of timber people don't like the government much. And I want to describe my first real encounter with this reality here because I'm a very liberal person. Been a college guy my whole life. If I could afford it, I'd probably still be going to college classes. So I'm very different than the blue collar, hardworking people that are here in Oregon. Now, when I first got here, I finally managed to buy my own little bungalow house up on 6th Street, and I found that my next door neighbor was a very more right wing Limbaugh sort of guy than I was. Of course, I was sort of a left wing, listening to German krautrock and stuff like that from the '70s kind of guy. But we ended up being very good friends. We're looking after each other's houses when we're gone. We have goodwill towards each other. And this distinction in red and blue state attitudes never seemed to do any harm for us. For 20 years, we've been best friends and next door neighbors, not going to parties together or hanging out at each other's houses, but just really being good neighbors. So I have an experience. I know you can get along with your neighbor of the red state variety or the blue state variety if you basically just accept them that they want to live their life as the way you want to live your life. You know, up here we'd call it like up a dirt road on your own property up in the hills or something. I go up there, I want to be left alone, and I'll leave you alone. And it works out pretty good. But one thing that I have seen over the last 20 years here, I moved here in 1992 and I bought my house in 1999, uh, was a worsening of the situation every year. When I was first here, I could wear my purple Buddhist robes because I was here because of a Buddhist group called Shagdagampa. And I wore my robes in town with no problem. Nobody gave me any trouble. About 8 or 9 years ago, I started to feel like I couldn't go back and do that again. So, it has gotten worse. Excuse me. A little bit of the smoke from the fires left, maybe. But I got to tell you that what really shocked me was about 7 or 8 years ago. Well, whenever Governor Brown was elected, I started hearing something in the coffee cup and the Vintage Inn and other coffee shops around town because I sort of migrate around them because it's sort of a pub crawl for me. I drink coffee a lot, and I heard people talking as if it was serious that they were going to assassinate, kill Governor Kate Brown. And with statements like, if she ever came to town here, there'd be some of us waiting for her, and that kind of talk. And I first thought of it as loose talk, but gradually in the environment all around me, I saw people protesting Kate Brown, and out on the coast about a year ago, they had a log truck parade with Governor Brown lynched in effigy on the back of the trucks, on the back of the logs stacked on the truck. And I was shocked. I went through the 1970s, and the far left then was pretty god awful, blowing up some banks and stuff like that. Uh, they were bad in the '70s. The left wing was bad in the '70s for violence, the way the right wing is bad for violence right now. And I have no use for either. I mean, I'm a happy neighbor. I like living in this little town I live in. I feel welcome here, and I welcome everybody else here. So our coffee shop has all sorts, and they're all very vocal. But I started hearing serious stuff about Governor Brown about a couple of years ago, as I said, and I was shocked, deeply shocked by it, because it didn't sound like kidding. And then I got rumors that the police had all arranged to have stockpiles of weapons in case President Obama got elected. I mean, Obama got elected president. And what do you think of hearing a rumor like that? The police are all going to raise up and defend their houses like fortresses if a Afro American becomes president. And he did, and it was a good couple of terms of office. It may not have been your cup of tea, but the United States prospered, and we were basically at peace with each other. We really were. But then in 2016, Trump came in and said, I'm for chaos that creates opportunity, and started a lot of white supremacy kind of talk and stuff like that. And to the point where I feel right now the country is just, it's symbolized by my first inkling that this was going on. I heard that there were tours up on the islands in British Columbia, and they had red tours and blue tours. You would go for a beautiful trip through the islands up there, and you'd only be surrounded by people who thought about things the way you did politically. I thought that was like some sort of urban legend, but it wasn't. I see more and more of that right now. Left wing versus right wing coffee shops, all of that kind of stuff. And then all the violence talk, all the I'm going to arm myself to the teeth talk. So I'm going to talk to you about right now, since I've heard some hot talk about President Trump, I'm going to talk about the various ways of getting rid of President Trump. So we can call this the old socialists video on how to get rid of Trump. And I'm going to go up a spectrum of absolutely unforgivable, inexcusable ways to do it, and the reasons why they're inexcusable and unforgivable, up to the one that I think is the best. And the first and worst option is assassination. Why is assassination wrong? Well, it's a sin to kill someone. But let's look at the results of it. You remove a figurehead, but you have no way refuted some argument of ideological content. You have no way pacified his supporters or made a wholesome unification of the various groups of America possible. Assassination is the worst and most inexcusable way to even talking about it for hot talk is just so diseased. What happens is you deepen the divide between people that is already there. There is no healing whatsoever. And then you have set the opposition in stone. Like there is no way for us to work this out but to kill someone. And it does nothing. And then just someone who supports the same sort of point of view have a justification and encouragement to get elected and replace them as a way of a remedy to all of this. So, murder and assassination is throwing gasoline on the fire. It does not make your society more like the society you want to live in. It makes it more divided. It is just the very worst. The next worst is let's say if he were to get ill and have to step down, or he was uh, uh, did some crime for which he was removed with Article 25 as an unfit person. Why is this rather nonviolent way of getting rid of him just as almost as useless as assassination? And it's because it gives no ground of conversation for turning people around to being able to deal with each other better. It again removes the person you don't like, but it provides no substance for bringing people together again. Everybody's still in their own camp. They haven't talked to each other. It's just a removal of a figurehead of one person. So resignation or being removed by Article 25, that's no good thing at all. The next more palatable way of doing it is to have the president go to trial, and before a trial where the good and bad is weighed out in public and judgment is made that he deserves to be removed, and that's a decent way of removing a president like President Trump. It's the same thing as having him impeached. Because what you have is you have a public conversation by which the public takes vicarious, if only vicarious, part in a conversation where we have changed our mind from saying this person and their way is acceptable to no, this person's way and this person is unacceptable. So you've actually created a structure of shared social understanding, which if people don't even agree with it, nevertheless they understand that the judgment on this person and their ideology has been made, and it is a public, orderly transition. So it doesn't deepen the divide between people. It doesn't make people even more hateful of each other. They still may be disgruntled and not want to talk to each other, but at least the transition through a trial or a impeachment is one in which there is now a public shared ideological and emotional framework for changing the attitudes in the country to one more wholesome and full of communication, and at least a start for going back on the road of rapprochement as a society. And of course, once you see that having this shared structure there is the target, not the removal, then you realize why having President Trump survive this coronavirus is so important. He has to be a viable representative of his point of view and go before the judgment of the people of the United States through a public election that people trust in. And then, if he is replaced as president, he is replaced in a way where it is a public expression of the American will as the people of a whole of saying, we have tried this road in this personal ways, we have decided against it, we're going with another person and another road. In other words, it has got a superstructure of the broadest possible framework for replacing one person with another, and the notion that we as a nation are operating as one nation in changing our direction. So if you watch that spectrum, you can see you're changing your attitude about replacing a person as being the thing you want to do to providing a vehicle for the transformation of our own understanding of what our path should be and our willingness to embody, to go down that road. And this is so important to say right now because I am very afraid that President Trump will get ill and have to be removed from office, or he dies and is removed from office by death. Because if that happens, there has been no social ceremony of transformation of American culture and direction at all. Please take this seriously. Hope that President Trump recovers. He is of sound mind and body. And so when he represents himself and his point of view, the judgment before the people of the United States in the election is understood to be the step in a healing, nationwide direction of, and affirmation as possible. So please take this advice from someone who really doesn't have much use for the guy at all. I'm wishing him the best, and so should you. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this, and I really hope you understand. I want us all to be like me and my next door neighbor. Take care.